Okay, so welcome. So happy to have all of you here. We are 99 people, but thrilled to have you here for a book study and a book that I honestly think should be a must read for every classroom teacher and every in-service teacher. Anyone who wants to become a teacher, I think should really read this book. She is at the cutting edge of the research between the special education research and the math ed research and talking about what is best for all students, particularly focusing though on the neurodiversity of students and learning disabilities, but also looking at the research between the math ed research in STEM journals versus the special ed research, because there are some websites and pockets of people that are saying, well, research says this, and she's the one that I have looked to for the answers of like, what do I say back to the people who are like, research says this. I need to know what to say back to them, because everything that they are saying of their myths of things, think science of math, um, is the exact opposite of what I have seen and have been learning about these last many years. And so she's the one that's giving me the what to say back and the research. This is her actively doing that. So I want to just welcome you to this book study. Let me just share my screen for a moment to share. This is do you see the screen of the cover of the book? Yeah, usually the green is there, but the green isn't there right now. So this is her book. This is Dr. Rachel Lambert's book, Rethinking Disability in Mathematics. It's a universal design for learning for math. It's appropriate for kindergarten to eighth grade in terms of the some of the examples that she has in the book for us. I am Annalise Record. So if you've not known of me before, I live here in Concord, New Hampshire. And I am a lot of social media work because I was living in northern New Hampshire for a long time and didn't have people to talk to about my passion I was developing for math. And so I reached out online, and at the time, Twitter was really a hotbed of math ed people, and I only follow math people on these platforms. And so I just welcome you to join in on the conversations. I facilitate a couple of groups with tens of thousands of people. Math Running Records, which is the fact fluency work of Dr. Nikki Newton, and Build Math Minds, Christina Tondevold's group. That there's a lot of people out there willing to talk math with you and give advice and what our experiences are. So I welcome you to join in on that space. I had mistakenly put tonight starting at 7 o'clock, but 7:30. I wanted to kind of compromise. I did a survey before I did this of like what night should we and days should we meet and what times. And a lot of you said 7, a lot said 8 o'clock. So I compromised with the 7:30, trying to meet the best needs of everyone. But a little bit about myself, if you haven't met me before. My son, my husband and I have two amazing children. Very objective opinion. They're just the best people in the world. But Matthew is now 31. Not sure how that math adds up. And Catherine is 20, about 29 in a couple of weeks. And then I don't know if you can see him, but my Marty McFly is right here with me. And the family is growing. So Catherine got married last summer to Brian. He has three beautiful children. So I'm now a bonus grandmother of three. And then Matthew and Hannah are getting married this September. So we're having her bridal shower in Connecticut next month. And then they're getting married in Wisconsin because both kids live in Wisconsin. Matthew went there first. His girlfriend at the time was getting her doctoral degree. And then they broke up, but he loves his job and loved the city. And then our daughter looked for jobs where her brother lives after she got her graduate degree in occupational therapy. So she has her dream job as a pediatric OT in Madison, fell in love with Brian. Now they're a family. And yeah, so our heart is in Madison, Wisconsin. And we had heard having a dog was a pretty cool thing. We've only had cats our whole 37 years being together. But we got Marty McFly 5 years ago, and he's just the light of our lives. He just makes us laugh and just all that unconditional love, all that goodness. On a professional side for my journey, I was a grade 5 teacher for 13 years. Then I became math coach K5, and that marked my beginning of learning of the complexities of elementary mathematics. My consulting tagline is there's nothing elementary about teaching elementary math. I'm now an independent consultant, so I do travel the country. I present for BER virtually, although I'll be on the road this fall for the first time in a couple of years, so that's exciting. And I am also an independent consultant, so I travel wherever I'm going. So I'm thrilled to have many of you here that I go and travel and work with you. But now our new book just came out, like it's in my hands right here. It just arrived 3 days ago. Our Fat Fluency book on multiplication and division. So our addition and subtraction was out since 2018, but Allison Mello and Nikki Newton and I experienced this after years of work. So it's out, which is super exciting. If you're interested in purchasing either of them on the Routledge site, Routledge is our publisher. If you use this code, you can get a discount, AFly02. So just wanted to put that out there because that's super exciting. And then this is Dr. Rachel Lambert. So I first learned of her because I'm the program chair for the New England Math Conference this fall. Any of you that are near New England, you've got to come to our conference. It's going to be the best conference ever. And one of my colleagues had said, let's look into getting Dr. Rachel Lambert as one of our keynotes. And so I reached out to her. She said, great. She lives in California. She's coming here and will be one of our keynotes here in Nashua, New Hampshire. And now she's like a rising star in the math ed world. She is unbelievable. So I can't believe we're so lucky to even have her. But she did, I have to have all of you, this is her background. She's a special ed teacher, but she's now associate professor in University of California, Santa Barbara. She is a researcher. So she is in classrooms. She is researching about particularly this intersection of math ed with students with special needs. And she has a special focus in neurodiverse students as well. Her website there is Mathematizing for All. All of her research is available for free. She believes very strongly for research to be available to everyone. She is not social media besides Blue Sky, so you can find her there. mathematicforall.bluesky.social. Twitter she does occasionally, but she's tried to move herself to Blue Sky. So, but just to let you know that she is available there. And also, you've got to all watch this webinar. This was a webinar she did back in January for the National Council of Teachers of Math. It is available for free for anyone. You do not need to be a member of NCTM to access it. You need to sign in for a free account, and then you can access it. So this is her unpacking the research claims, think science of math, about teaching and learning in mathematics. And it's a phenomenal webinar. I can't possibly do it justice. So check that out. I'll be giving you an agenda after tonight of when the dates are for our meetings, and I will link to the site what this is for you as well. So you can just make sure you see that webinar. It's just pure gold. So, and just to mention again, the New England Math Conference, we have this coming fall. New Hampshire's hosting it this fall, but we have Ken Williams and Pamela Sita and Zach Champagne and the new NCTM president Latrenda and Rachel. So they are our keynotes, but even our featured are amazing as well, like Chase Orton and Dr. Nikki Newton. And
I need you to stop making noise for just a second.
Oh,
just tell me when.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so just wanted to put that plug out there for you as well. And I can't not mention my Ted Lasso show. I love Ted Lasso, and it is a story about a American football coach that gets hired for a UK football team, but in the UK it's soccer. And so the owner of the team does want the team destroyed. It's on Apple Plus TV, but for $9.99 for the month, you will binge the entire 3 seasons in the first month, I promise you. It's just one of the best shows of all time. But one of my favorite scenes is that he talks about being underestimated his whole life. People just didn't expect him to achieve things. And he realized, but he turns them wrong at every turn. And he saw a quote one day that said to be curious and not judgmental. And he said, I realized in that moment that people's perceptions of me had nothing to do with me. It's their perceptions, their judgments. They weren't curious. They didn't ask me anything about myself. And one of my favorite stories that I tell, because it was quite the moment for me, was I was modeling a math running record of fluency assessment with some fifth graders. And that before a student came in, the teacher said, I don't know what to do with him. He is the lowest of the low. And I'm referring him for special ed testing. She'd had him in her class for several months. Now, I don't use terms like low and high anymore. I did. I no longer do. But she said, so before he came in, we're all thinking he's lowest of the low. Okay. And early on in the interview is 9 times 5, the times fives. And he thought for a while and he said 45. And then I said, okay, so I'm curious, what was your thinking? How did you figure it out? And he said, well, I halved that 9 to 4.5, and that times 10 is 45. Now, I knew he got the right answer, but in that moment, honestly, I had no idea what he had done. I'm like, oh my gosh, but he got the right answer. I had been in classrooms as a math coach at that point, telling kids that double and halving is a fantastic strategy and exploring it with them. But I was telling students, you can't do that with even numbers. You need to have even numbers. You can't do it with odd numbers. And this fifth grader, whose teacher thought he was the lowest of the low, taught me that day that, of course, you can double have anything. But sometimes when you do it the double and the halving, you might get a decimal, right? Like, this is a student whose teacher thought he was not cognitively able to do the fifth grade work. Clearly, there hadn't been a communication with him of what his thinking is, right? It gets hidden from us in our traditional kind of ways of paper pencil assessments and things. So I want to make sure that all of us know that in this space, that we are not being judgmental, that we are being curious, that we're being kind, that we're supportive of all of us, all the wonderful norms of working together as a group, and be able to discuss ideas. So some just basic things I want to get out of the way here with our time together. Everyone's welcome. Even if you didn't read the chapters, I mean, I want this to be a summertime, informal, let's get together and talk. But I don't want someone not to come to feel like I didn't get time to read it. We all have a life, and I want you to enjoy your summer. So well deserved. Please feel welcome to come. Even if you didn't read the chapters, the topics that come up, you'll have plenty to talk about. And I want you just to continue to learn and feel welcome to join in. After tonight, once I get feedback from you about what you want for the schedule, I will make a schedule for the dates and the times. I'll do it by email out to everyone from now on. I just wanted to have a chance tonight to see who actually shows up and see, what you all want to do for the scheduling of that. There was Dr. Nikki and I have done several Zoom meetings with people, and there was one time where we got to the hour-long marker, and Dr. Nikki was like, all right, well, we're out of time. And I'm like, why? We're the ones organizing this. This is like a business. Like, so I don't feel any pressure of having to be done after an hour, let's say. Like, there's no time limit. We can meet how long as we want. So you can feel free to leave whenever you feel like you need to leave, but don't feel like I'm not gonna put a pressure on myself to be done after an hour. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna talk about what we talk about, and you can hang out as long as you want. So um and then if you think of anyone else that would like to join in and would want to join in the future, this is how they can sign up for it. I created a tinyurl.com, and it just said rethinking disability. But that will get on my email list. All right. So for tonight, let's see. So hopefully people have read chapter 1. You have the book. If you haven't gotten the book yet, on Corwin's site for the code Raven25, you can get a discount to purchase it. And hopefully, if those of you that do have it, you read the chapter 1 about trusting in the thinking of our students. I think this is such a powerful, powerful chapter, because I do run into this in my consulting work of there are some people that I meet that don't believe that their kids can do the thinking required. And so Peter Liljedahl, building in classrooms has been an amazing revolutionary thing. And I like how he says that there are times that we plan expecting that the kids can't or won't think and do it, right? As opposed to that beginning with the kids can do these things, right? So so I was curious your experiences, and I think what I'll do is I'll get you into breakout groups. So here are the questions, either the ones from chapter 1, they're at the end of chapter 1, just talking about what have been your experiences teaching with students with disabilities. Also, what did you notice and wonder? The Susan's class that did that division of fractions problem for the 12 chairs. What were questions you might want to ask her and her students? What do you wonder about the story problems with CGI problem types? And then what do you have questions about teaching students with disabilities? But I would love for us to, as part of the recording, people that couldn't make it tonight or those that couldn't make it into the room, we're currently at 92, but the max is 100. So there are some people that did message me that they couldn't get in. So I would love if any of you are willing to share what your group talked about the experiences of teaching students with disabilities, and or maybe even yourself being a student with disabilities, and what brought you to this book. What made you kind of pick it up and say that you wanted to read it? If anyone's willing to share.
I'll share. Are we there?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, you brought me to the book because of your site, and then I was very intrigued right away. And so one of the things that we talked about in our group was just maybe education in general, and probably more so for our special ed students, is that we just don't give them time, because we're trying to meet the needs of so many learners in our rooms, that time sometimes is what they need the most, and we can't always give that to them. And so what does that look like? And I know we had some people in our group talking about small group instruction and the way they do their instruction, but I'm curious to see what other people have to offer when you have so many different learners in one room. How are you meeting the needs of all of those students?
Yeah, very good questions that we're going to be hopefully be addressing as the book goes on, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, and go.
Yeah.
I think I'll just offer up math workshop and small group instruction is key, but.
And I was going to share in the chat, I had put in the BTC resources that have been compiled through so many different people adding to it. And I know we have an amazing person here, Tammy, wherever you are on my screen. You're part of that too. And I think that it's just a fact of creating tasks that are open enough, that are at the level that you need to be, like the 12 chairs. And it was broken into, do you want to use a fourth of a paint or 3/4 of a paint? Or do you need to say that you are using so much paint, you're using a whole gallon just for your chair? So how many? Because it's one task. We all have the common language of the task, but we break it to where we need it to go.
Our group used some strong vocabulary to describe experiences and felt really grateful. One of the members in my group commented that we need 100 or 1,000 Rachels out there, but the language was a few different people talked about experiences being heartbreaking, and this particular population of students being underestimated. So that was kind of the theme of answer. We didn't get beyond that first introductions and that first question.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I feel like as a society, we're all about reading and the disabilities and how we can help with that. And I don't think people translate that into how that affects students and their math abilities. So I'm really excited to get through this book and see um, what she has to suggest about that. Just like something as simple as students with dyslexia who struggle with memorizing, and still the state special education teachers who tell you kids can't memorize their spelling list are the ones trying to get them to memorize their math facts. So I'm just really excited to offer other ways in which teachers can work with those students with just that disability in general. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think that to kind of piggyback on that, like I think for far too long we've thought that we need to fix these kids, like they come to school to be fixed. And both of my girls have a disability, and my oldest is going into 4th grade. And I often have looked at people and said, like, she's not broken. There's nothing to fix about her. And she's also not a box. So what are we doing? Like, she's not going to fit within the box. What is the school doing to work around her? Like, kind of like I use the analogy of a present. Not every present's going to fit nicely into a box, and you're not going to shove something into a box just to wrap it up nice and neatly, because then you might break the present and that wouldn't work out so well. So then how instead do you change the wrapping? And I think I can control what I as a teacher do, or how I set up my environment. And those are the factors that I am hoping that, at least it sounds like a few chapters in, that we might learn more about, because then I'm hoping that can inform me both as an educator, but then also as a parent, to hopefully encourage some better IEP goals besides my child can add and subtract within 20, which she still does not have memorized, but yet can solve many other things.
So true, Laura.
To kind of piggyback off that, something we talked about in our group was just, and I've experienced, I taught 1st, 3rd, 4th, and now I'm in middle. And I've noticed as we get older, A lot of students with disabilities, if you first ask them to think for themselves instead of putting them in a box, that learned helplessness is their first defense that goes up, and breaking that down is really hard. Getting them to believe in their own thinking again takes that time, and a lot of, like I said, time is precious in a classroom, so that's a really hard thing to do. But once you do tear down that wall, it is liberating for them to see that they have the power. They may not know, a long division algorithm, but they can still do it, and they can still get to this concrete model and find the solution. And once you have that buy-in, it's magic. It's just giving them and yourselves permission to let them slow down. I think from older students, very similar to the literacy, they start to see things as baby texts or baby, I think they start to see math strategies as baby strategies, and getting them to step away and say, hey, there are no bad strategies. Our goal is understanding. And if drawing this picture is a ticket to understanding, then that's what we need to do. And just empowering them and everybody else that there are a series of math art pieces that we can approach to get to that is a really cool thing. So I'm excited to kind of see if there's strategies to help with that learned helplessness and help empower students and teachers to kind of see a variety of perspectives in mathematical thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
I think so much of what we do is building the kids' identity, so their belief in themselves, but then their agency, that they show us with their actions that they know they can solve things, that disposition is, and the word that comes through so clearly for me is choice.
Mm-hmm.
That a key part of that building identity is like to give kids choice, to give a choice of numbers that they can choose to solve a problem, a choice of how they do their thinking, concrete, pictorial, abstract, like, and that we're all in this thinking, like the BTC I just love for so many reasons too, but like these multimodalities and providing choice to kids. I don't see a lot of choice happening in math classrooms for any children, but it's important for all kids, right? Yeah.
Something that really we talked about in our group and I brought up because it was a sentence that stuck with me was from page 2. Deficit conceptions of learners turn into deficit pedagogies that assume students cannot think for themselves. And I think it goes back to a little bit what's kind of been talked about as well, is how are those things when we're seeing kids maybe struggle, and maybe that deficit conception that we put them into math groups of a low, middle, high, turn into the pedagogies for the low, middle, high groups as well as it goes through. And that's just something that I started that stuck with me. And it's just thinking back, I wish I could go back and tell my first year teacher 24, 25 years ago, some of the things that I've learned in the last 12 or 13 years. It's like, come on, just snap out of it and go. And hearing these things, it just kind of makes you think a little bit differently as well.
Otis, that sentence really stuck out for me too. Highlighted, marked it, starred it. And the research is really clear that we actually don't those low, medium, and high, and I'm with you, Elise, Annalise, I don't use that language, but that if you do use that language, you don't do it well. You're miscategorizing kids, so stop it.
True.
And
so true.
And the sentence I was going to read from her book was on page 12, just as sort of embracing everything that you all have been saying, is she says, I strongly believe that students with disabilities are underperforming in mathematics in part because we don't trust their thinking. So if this book group can be about how to support ourselves and our colleagues in knowing what it means to trust students' thinking, I feel like we'll be making some headway.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with all of those. And to the learned helplessness, like, I think it's important for teachers to remember, if they're frustrated with that, the kids don't come with that. They learn that because someone is spoon feeding them and someone's not asking them correct question strategies. And the fact that they might be asking, like, oh, do I add or subtract here, could be reframed in thinking that there's a researcher out there by the last name of Scott who talks about it being ingenuity, like that student is actually onto something, even though it might appear to be helplessness, like, but they've learned this helplessness from improper questioning and whatnot.
And the minute we affirm that, we restart the cycle. That's what's so hard. Is if we backtrack and say, okay, let me just show you how to do that, then we have reaffirmed that that is what they should be doing in a math classroom. And that's what's so hard, is that waiting it out for them to really have to have that first aha of their own that they did themselves. Then you've got them bought in, and it's okay until you move to another concept. You've got to re-buy them in, but it's so powerful to start to see them feel empowered by their own thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And kids are very, very good about picking up on cues of how you say yes or no, or how you answer things. They're very good about that.
I just wanted to add on to all that, and also what Tammy just posted about trust for all in math. Also, like, teachers need to trust themselves as math teachers. How many, I think, at an elementary level are like, oh, I'm not a math person, so they don't trust that their students can figure things out other than one way.
Mm-hmm.
So, building that sense of trust and understanding and giving the time, it's all of these things that we've talked about is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Melissa, I think you're right there in the comments that teachers need to build their confidence in math. I meet that all the time in my consulting work, that people just don't think of themselves as a math person, that they don't have the math thinking. And it's not a matter of that they can't, they're having the experiences to be exposed to it, right? So very often I will give a subtraction problem to K-5 teachers, 52 minus 38. And I'll have to solve it as many ways as you can. And they usually get to 2 ways. They're like, I'm out. Like, and so I always say, well, you don't know anymore yet, right? It's always a yet. Not that you can't do it. You just have never exposed your brain to it. It's about exposure. And we can't facilitate those journeys if we ourselves don't have the options and the alternatives, right, to help meet the needs. And it's a matter of getting in there and having that mindset. We all do the best we can until you know more. And then when you know more, you'll do better, right? Dr. Maya Angelou's quote. I live by that, because I continue to learn something every single day. And this is all that I do. This is my livelihood. And I continue to learn. So you have to have that mindset for sure.
Our group talked a lot about that. Just I started teaching high school, and then I went to elementary, and I was like, you're supposed to know how to teach everything. Like, it was awful. And I specialized, right away, I was like, I just want to do math and science, and they let me do that. But I think just hearing that over and over again from my colleagues, like, I don't like math. Like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I'm like, well, like, but we need to talk about it. Like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And, it's so fascinating that, like, we're expected to know. And then we talked also, I think, amongst our whole group, of just the lack of time. Like, our job, we show up and we teach, but when do we actually have the time to, like, do this, except for summer vacation on Monday night?
Right, exactly.
So it's rough.
Mm-hmm.
If I could just say a couple things. It's such a great conversation, but Annalise, I've been thinking about Dr. Sharma, and he talks about learning. His definition of learning is it's a residual memory from an experience. So, which is such a great quote that I think about. Like, so whatever we all experience, whatever students experience, like, that's what they learn. Like, that's the thing that they're internalizing. And a lot of what I see in the examples in here and just letting students explore is thinking about the intuition. Like, we want to build number sense and intuition, right? And if they don't have those experiences to explore that, then how do they ever build the intuition that we want them to have? Like,
I'll just share. I was lucky enough this year, our entire one of our entire grade levels was BTC. And so what we were allowed to do in our PLC work for math this year was looking at a concept, but then really digging into our own conceptual knowledge and looking at a variety of strategies. So it was a lot of fun. Instead of, looking towards assessment and all of the other pieces are like, great, here's where we need to be first. We need to have a strong understanding. So we would start with tasks ourselves in these PLC work and look at the variety of strategies, understanding. And then we would look at student work samples and say, okay, if we saw this on the board, what do you think would be some questions that we could approach the student with? What understandings do they already have based on this? And it was just so much fun as a team. And when we went back to our classrooms to apply it, we then had a range of strategies and background to build on. So it was just a really powerful model that we had not approached before, but because we took the time, it was so much more successful when we applied it into the classrooms. It was fantastic.
That is awesome. There's a quote with Jenny Bay Williams and John St. Giovanni wrote one of my favorite books on fluency, the Figuring Out Fluency book. They talk about students need to know a variety of strategies to calculate with so they can own it, so that they can choose it. And that choice element speaks so much to me as well. Like multiplication, double and halving is such a powerful strategy. It can change the most gnarly looking things to so much more like, oh, wait, I could do that. But if our kids don't know it exists, and we try at the beginning to say, oh, my kids can't do that. And I hear this from teachers that have these fixed mindsets of, well, my students can't half. So they can't do double and halving, and my students can't double or half. And I'm like, yeah, but you could work on that skill so that they can do the double and halving. Like, that's not a reason to not let the kids even try it. Like, right? They can't have the choice if they haven't had the experience of building the different understandings. And yeah, so important.
I totally agree with you. Sorry, I'm in my car. I'm still working, everybody who's on summer vacation. I teach grade 5, 6, and student agency is super key. I have a very complex class this year, and I had most of my students were not excited about learning math or whatever. But we're just doing report cards right now, and they were doing some reflections. I think a majority of them were talking about how much they've grown in math and how they feel more confident compared to the beginning of the year. So well done, teach. I was at TTOC last week in a grade 4 5 class, and I was helping them with perimeter. They had a few pages to do. It was kind of fun. And then I was kind of helping them with different questions. And then I was like, oh, so it's double this or half of that. And they just kind of looked at me, and I was like 170 days into the school year in grade 4 5 class. And I said to one of the kids, I said, I used to teach primary, and I used to have to teach about doubles, but I never understood like why it was so important. And she said she only knew up to 12, for example. I only know up to 12. I said, well, this being in grade 5, 6 really informed me a lot why this is so important, like knowing halves, doubles, triples, whatever like that. So anyway, it's really applicable across anything. And then my favorite person is James Tatton. And he's like, if the number's prickly, then change it, right? So empowering the kids that they can manipulate the math, right? And believing that all kids can do it. Because I still have some learning assistance teachers here where I live who, friends forever. And they use low and high. And I'm just like, my heart just breaks. And I said, that's not language that I use. And they're like, what do you use? And I'm like, oh my God, you're putting me under pressure. What do I use, right? Everybody's capable, and you don't know what they're going to be struggling with, what are they going to shine with? So you give them lots of different opportunities to shine and then find their niche or their things that they can do. And they're doing Struggly. My students are doing Struggly right now, Joe Bowler's app. And
wonderful.
One of my students who's really timid in math and would be emerging in math, we use a proficiency scale, and her numeracy she's grade 6, and her numeracy, she has trouble remembering. And try to give her the tools, but then it takes time for her to remember how to use the tools, right? And then here she's on Struggly, and they're doing tessellation tiles, and she's just like flip, flip, flip. And then some other kids in my class who do quite well in numeracy in all areas of mathematics, they're like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, you need to go over to them, and you're going to show them how to do it. So, finding those opportunities where they are the ones mentoring others and not giving them the answers, but they showing them, and I go, wow, you're so good at this. And you are, right? So giving those opportunities are really key. There's no one low, right? We're still on the trajectory of learning. We all arrive there maybe at different times.
Is there anything else? Any other question or anything anyone want to toss out to the group that you were wondering about?
For the person who put in the chat for Mahesh Sharma's course, thank you. He has a free webinar Tuesday mornings, but it's at 5 a.m. Pacific, and it's hard to go somewhere at 5 a.m. Pacific or 5 a.m. in the morning. But for the person who put that course, it looks like it's free. So thank you.
Yeah, and I believe they record those. I think they have like a Google folder that had some of those recordings on it.
Yes. They are free, and Elise was one of the participants, so you might catch
I was in the room with him.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Are there videos or are they just PDFs, it looks like?
They're videos. You have to register for the course, which is free.
Oh, I see here. Now the videos are coming up.
The way Canvas is built, so the videos stored in Kaltura can't be seen unless you're registered.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And Nancy, you asked about the fluency book. So Genevieve Williams and John St. Giovanni, what I love about their series of fluency is it's K-8, because it's not just about fact fluency. So I was a grade 5 teacher for 13 years, and I said, I don't have time for fact fluency. Do you know my content of grade 5? Because I didn't yet know the connection between strategies and relationships. We can start with basic facts and extend all sorts of numbers on the journey. It wasn't until I left the classroom and became a math coach, and I had to learn, how do kindergartners learn math? I had no idea. My graduate program that certified me to teach, my undergraduates in sociology, so my grad master's to teach, I had one class, and it was math and literature. And I love use picture books to explore math, but I didn't come out certified K-8 any more understanding how kindergartners learn math than an 8th grader learns math. And I was given the textbook of my school, my school, and I taught with that textbook, and I taught the way I learned math. That's what journey was. So it wasn't until I left my classroom that when I was coaching now K-5, that I began to see this connected journey between all the grades and the mathematical ideas. I was in my 5th grade silo of standards and getting kids to do this. And it's just the things we do in kinder help us all the way through. The things in 3rd grade for an area model, we can do with polynomials in high school. But I didn't know that. I never saw that connection until I was given the experience to explore that. Right. And so, yeah, so important that we see that as a connected journey, and that we are a team of educators that are helping facilitate this journey of kids. That mindset. We're not just these silos, and particularly our special educators. I do find it in my consulting work that I'll be given an audience with the teachers, and I'll say, where are the special education teachers? Oh, well, they're not coming today. Like, why aren't we all at the table? Why aren't we all included on this journey? We're all a team to meet the needs of all of these students, right? Yeah.
Annalise, I just want to make sure that it's okay with everyone. I'm going to put in that Google slides. If somebody wants to add information in, resources, it will be a great way, but nobody feel pressure, if that's okay with you.
Great. Thank you, Karina. Absolutely. Yeah. I will curate any kind of resources that I can for us. I will be creating the schedule and sending a link out to that by email. I also have taken notes on what I have read in the book so far. I have not read all the chapters to take notes. I read them all, but not the detailed notes. For anyone that doesn't have time to read it, what the kind of like the cliff notes of it, have it just as a resource. But I'm happy to help connect all of you to any of the resources that we share together. There's so many free things out there that are made by brilliant and kind and generous people. It's about connecting all of you to those resources that exist. There shouldn't be any need for you to purchase something out of your own pocket for your classroom. There's so many brilliant things out there. So I don't want anyone to feel pressure to leave at all. I'm happy to stay and hang out all night. You're my people. I love it. But don't feel pressure to stay if you don't want to stay. But yeah, I'm happy to keep talking. But anyone, feel free to. There's no judgment of you heading out. So